Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's seminar where we're joined by Alzecure Pharma. And with that, I'll hand over to you, Martin, for the presentation.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Martin Johnson, and we are here to present to you a seminar on Alzecure's pain asset, Painless ACD440. A presentation under the title ACD440, a novel non-opioid analgesic with Orphan Designation. And today's presenter will be Alzecure's CMO, Märta Segerdahl. Märta has a long career within the pharmaceutical industry, and before that within academia as a pain specialist. Today we also have the pleasure to have Dimitrina Dimitrova, who is a business consultant and also from Karolinska Institute, who have done a lot of work within the area of orphan. And then you have me, Martin Johnson, who is the CEO of Alzecure Pharma and has been with Alzecure for about 6 years. Today, the agenda for our session is ACD440 and the opportunity within orphan. We will go through a presentation on the orphan drug market, past, present, and the future, presented by Dimitrina Dimitrova. And after that, we will dive into our pain asset, ACD440, and the opportunity we now have within the area of erythromelalgia. And then we will go over to Q&A, where you will be able to send in questions that we can answer, and then we will have some final remarks. But first, we will have a short introduction to Alzecure. And if we look at Alzecure, we are focusing on pain and Alzheimer's disease. And we are spin out of AstraZeneca. So when AstraZeneca left the CNS area, researchers from Astra founded Alzecure. And we have been sponsored by the Swedish Alzheimer's Fund. And we are based in Stockholm at Karolinska Institute. And we are developing small molecules. And we have multiple small molecule candidates, which are first-in-class properties. We have one project, one platform, which is Alzstatin, which is preventive disease-modifying treatment against Alzheimer's to see to it that individuals do not develop Alzheimer's. And then we have New Restore, which is a symptomatic treatment to help individuals who have cognitive disorders to improve their learning and memory capabilities. And then we have the platform Painless, where we have two pain assets, of which one we have ACD440, which we will focus on today. And as a company, we are listed at Nasdaq, first premier growth market here in Sweden. And our business model is that we are a research and development company. Our goal is to outlicense our project and to outlicense projects to finance the other projects that we keep in our pipeline. And if we look at our pipeline that we are having, we have our three platforms. And in New Restore, we have ACD856, which is a positive allosteric modulator to improve learning and memory capabilities, where we focus on Alzheimer's disease, and we have a positive phase 1 readout. We have also, during this spring, gotten a grant from the European Innovation Council, who are co-sponsoring our planned phase 2 study. And then in Alzstatin, our preventive treatment against Alzheimer's disease, where we have a gamma secretase modulator, we have a lead candidate, ACD680, which we now are preparing for phase 1. And in the Painless platform, we have ACD440, which is a TRPV1 antagonist, where we are working on the indication neuropathic pain, as well as pain in erythromelalgia. And we have a positive phase 2 readout in chronic patients with peripheral neuropathic pain. and now we are heading in towards erythromelalgia. And then on ACD137, we have the TrkA-NAM assets where we are focusing on osteoarthritis. And here we are preparing these assets as ACD137 for clinical trials. And in the platform Painless with ACD440, which is a topical TRPV1 antagonist, we have initially been focusing on neuropathic pain, which is the biggest individual area of pain disorder with more than 600 million patients. And this area, here we are building on science around TRPV1, which has been awarded with the Nobel Prize in 2021. And recently, this summer, we received Orphan Designation for this asset for the indication pain in erythromelalgia. And we have also from the FDA received positive feedback on a potential registration trial that we now are preparing for, pain in erythromelalgia. And this is what we will be focusing on today. And what we now will be doing is that we will listen to Dimitrova on the orphan drug market, past, present, and future. And I hand over to you, Dimitrina, please.
Thank you for the introduction, Martin, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to share some insights from my master's research at Karolinska Institutet, where I choose to explore the global orphan drug market. And in this broadcast, I'll take you through why it matters so much for the patients and why it has become such an important focus for pharma and investors. Now, let's begin with some fundamentals to understand the market. Orphan drugs, per definition, are medicines that develop specifically for rare diseases. However, the definition of rare depends on geography. In the US, that means conditions affecting fewer than 200,000 patients, while in the EU, the threshold is fewer than 5 in 10,000 people. Now, traditionally, medicines have been developed for millions, even billions of patients worldwide, while orphan drugs focus on much smaller patient groups. And within this space, there's even a narrower category of ultra-orphan diseases, which are affecting fewer than 6,000 patients. However, there's also some unofficial definitions. And these very small populations are explained by the nature of their conditions. They're usually very severe, life-threatening diseases with no existing treatment options, representing an area of high unmet medical need. However, regulators have responded. Today, FDA reports that over half of the newly approved medicines are exactly orphan drugs. But despite this progress, it is known that almost less than 5% of rare diseases have an improved treatment, which creates urgency for patients and families who have no therapeutic options, while at the same time fueling fierce competition among companies, since being first to market often means years of exclusivity, premium pricing, and dominance in high-value niche. And this urgency competitions are reflected directly into the market explosive growth. In 2024, the orphan drug market has reached $195.2 billion globally, which is already accounting for 12% of all prescription sales. And this market is also highly concentrated in the United States, where it has generated more than 60% of the sales, followed by Europe and the rest of the world. But what truly sets apart the orphan drugs is their momentum. While the broader pharmaceutical industry grows at around 5 to 6%, orphan drugs are expanding double that to 10 to 12% annually, which is twice the speed of the overall market. And this means that companies and investors that are active in the rare disease are positioned at the very center of the most dynamic growth in the global healthcare. And this extraordinary growth is not accidental. It's built on sets of unique incentives. It begins with speed, reaching the patient sooner because patients can't afford to wait. Orphan drugs are often moved through development faster, typically reaching the market in about 5 years compared to a decade in or more for common diseases. And once approved, companies are rewarded with long market exclusivity, 7 years in the US and 10 in Europe, which and protection provides stable, predictable revenue. And third, the FDA has built an entire support system around orphan drugs with dedicated review units and accelerated designations like fast track and priority review and waived fees. And finally, there's a strong legislative backing. Well, since the early 80s and the establishment of the Orphan Drug Act has changed a lot in this market. But even fast forward to today in 2025, new rules in the big, beautiful bill in the US have now even exempt orphan drugs from Medicare price negotiations. And exactly this combination of incentives has drawn big pharma deeply into the orphan space, where more than half of all orphan revenues come from just 10 companies. Well, typically Roche leading with the field in oncology, Novartis shaping rare diseases with its gene therapy and strong hematology franchise, and of course, Pfizer and Johnson heavily invested, making rare diseases part of their core business. For these companies, often already represent around 20% of the total sales, which is not a sideline, but a major growth driver. And the economics tell an important part of the story because orphan drugs serve such small patient groups. They rely on premium pricing, on average about 17 times higher than other medicines. But it's not only big pharma that sees the value. This market is also of great interest to investors. And in the Nordics already, investors' role has been especially decisive in shaping some success stories. In my research, I had the opportunity to interview HealthCap, a leading life science investment company. Over the years, they have invested about 120 on the upper range of $123 million across 8 orphan drug companies, creating some of the Nordics' most valuable rare disease assets. I choose a powerful example of Wilson Therapeutics, a Swedish biotech developing a treatment for a Wilson's disease, which is an ultra-rare condition, because it's affecting only 10 to 30,000 patients worldwide. And despite serving such a small population, the therapy addresses a life-threatening unmet medical need. And within just 6 years, the company was acquired for the staggering $855 million by Alexion, which also shows a scenario of investing in ultra rare condition, having a shorter timeline in return. And in one of my conversations with healthcare partner, I shared something interesting during the interview, a perspective on the fact that regulatory exclusivity can be even a stronger driver for value, which gives smaller companies freedom to grow without immediate competition. And the same dynamics are no longer limited to rare diseases. They're now dragged to the next chapter of medicine as well, laying the foundation for precision medicine. Because rare diseases affect only very few patients, companies had no choice but to design therapies that are highly targeted, often to a specific genetic mutation. And in many ways, orphan drugs were the first true examples of precision medicine in practice. Of first targeted treatments, the technologies that grew out of orphan drug development and gene and cell therapies and antibody drug conjugates, RNA medicines, and all the data accumulated around it are now be applied to larger diseases. And what was once used for rare disorders is now transforming how we treat different conditions. Second is enhanced diagnostics. To find rare patients, the field advanced genomics, biomarker testing, and now using even AI-driven diagnostics. And those same tools are enabling us to identify subgroups in much larger populations and match them with the right therapy. So in other words, Orphan Framework has proven that targeted high-value treatments are possible, and today is becoming the blueprint for precision medicine across the entire healthcare system. And with that in mind, let me leave you with three key insights from my research. First, orphan drugs are the fastest growing segment in pharma currently, and that both pharma and investors are benefiting from the predictable value in this space. And thirdly, that they're shaping the future of precision medicine. I believe they will be seeing a lot of more investments and shifts in this area. So to conclude, my research in close collaboration with Martin Johnson at Alzecure Pharma resulted in comprehensive report, often from pharma report. And over the course of this research, I spoke with Swedish investors who have committed millions of dollars to building orphan drug companies, and with executives who have successfully brought these medicines to the US market, combined with regulatory and IP perspective. So to have a look at the full interview analysis and detailed findings captured in the report, I would welcome you to scan the code for downloading the full report or later available web link. And with that, thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to discussing the Q&A session.
Thank you so much, Dimitrina. Very great presentation. And we are now heading into the presentation of Märta Segerdahl. Please bear with us.
So hello, everyone, and thank you for being here with us this afternoon. And thank you, Martin, for your very kind introduction. So my name is Märta Segerdahl. I'm an MD, PhD, a specialist in pain medicine, and I'm also the Chief Medical Officer of Alzecure Pharma. So we have been talking about erythromelalgia, but exactly what is that? Very few people have heard of it. It's a rare chronic painful disorder. It's also called burning feet syndrome. It's a triad of redness, swelling, and intense pain. And this pain that comes in attacks that are called flared, and they're triggered typically by heat or stress, meaning physical stress like exercise. And you can see these photographs below here. These are from actual patients. These are not Photoshop. So you can see, especially in the middle, you can see this picture of this woman with a picture of her when she's fine between attacks and then when she has an attack. As you can see, it's red, it's swollen, and it also looks like she's in pain. So one flare or one attack can last for 1 hour, or it could last for several days. Erythromelalgia is again divided into primary erythromelalgia, which is mostly hereditary and often linked to mutations, but not everywhere. And secondary erythromelalgia, which is usually triggered by severe illness like a malignant disease or an autoimmune disease, or even by some medications. So how does it appear and how common is it really? The prevalence of erythromelalgia, meaning that how many people actually suffer from this at this one point in time, point in time, and looking at the primary and secondary together, is approximately 13,000 per 100,000 individuals. So that qualifies as an orphan disease. When we did our application to the US for an orphan drug designation, the literature helped us to find that there is a number between 43,000 and 70,000 individuals estimated to have erythromelalgia. So that well qualifies for the orphan drug threshold of below 200,000 individuals of the US population. It can actually start very early in childhood, from age 4 to 6 and up to adolescence, but also even start later in life. Primary erythromelalgia is mostly a lifelong and disabling disease with very many secondary complications like skin wounds, etc. And it could also be an inflammatory microvascular disease like in secondary erythromelalgia. And then that could be a side effect medication, but also a co-phenomenon where you think that the microvascular disease is the only problem, but no, that's not quite it. It's also erythromelalgia. And these individuals, they suffer from pain attacks. They feel like a very intense burning. It's very clearly characterized by patients. And the increased temperature could be ambient, it could be a fireplace, could be it's warm outside, or it could be very local, like you have the sun shining on you, or you have too warm clothes on. The only remedy that actually works today is either cooling your feet in ice water or putting them in front of the AC or a cooling fan. There is a global patient advocacy group for this indication, and they give out surveys every few years. So the 2021 survey is now published. And from this, we can conclude that the hereditary forms actually start by age roughly by 4 to 20. So it's quite, one thing is literature, one thing is a questionnaire. But the sporadic forms often occur in adult age. Who do they see? Do they see general practitioners? Not really. They won't really recognize this. It will take more than a year from the contact to the first time to a diagnosis, and not until they've seen a neurologist or a dermatologist or a rheumatologist. So basically, it's a specialty care disease. The pain flares that come either most days or pretty much every day, as you can see from the right-hand pie chart, about 75% have most days or every day. They're burning, as mentioned. They have a varying duration between 1 to 5 hours or even more than 5 hours. And the typical daily pain, like an average pain, is what we call moderate pain. So between 3 and 7 out of 10 on the 0 to 10 scale, and 10 is the worst you can even think of. And the worst case pain when they have their attacks is between 8 and 10 out of 10. And as a comparison, you could say that a delivery of a baby is about 8 out of 10, and an amputation pain could be around the moderate range. So this is quite heavy and severe pain. Flares are mostly triggered by heat, physical stress, but also in other conditions, it could be like it's in combination with a flu or some infection coming on. Best therapy is cooling, which can be damaging. They can actually get wounds from the cold water or cold fan, and then they could get infected and be very scared, get a lot of scars on their feet or hands or whichever area it is that is affected. There is no effective medical treatment, so that also fulfills the orphan criteria, not only the number of patients, but also that there is no effective medical treatment. Not only not approved, but nothing effective. So it's a lifelong disease, and some patients actually improve over the years, but the mainstay of patients actually get worse. 50% of them actually get worse, and about 1/3 have about the same level of problems, and a smaller group actually improve. And that's the improving part is usually the patients with a secondary erythromelalgia, where they have realized what the problem is and they have cured the cause for it. So, as it could be understood, is that this has a huge socioeconomic impact also for the patients, but also the family and caregivers. So, what has this to do with the TRPV1 receptor? Well, the TRPV1 receptor is actually key in pain signaling. So the receptor, as Martin mentioned, it was characterized in the 1990s by the group of Professor David Julius. And it was shown to be central for the mediation of heat and pain. The receptor is also called the capsaicin receptor, or capsaicin as in chili. And when you heat the skin, this little figure on the bottom right shows that if you heat the skin, shown at the bottom, very bottom of it, you can actually increase the pain and the circulation, the redness, significantly. And when you cool, instead, it goes down. So the receptor triggers the release of vasodilating substances from the sensory nerve endings as part of everything. So it's very similar to the way the capsaicin works. So the target mechanism then, well, the TRPV1 receptor or capsaicin receptor is central to the initiation of the pain signal, also called the transduction. And it's distributed all throughout the body. And if you have a painful condition like in neuropathic pain, these receptors are upregulated. So that means that there are more of them, and they're also more sensitive to activation. Previously, there's been a number of TRPV1 antagonists, like in the first decade of this millennium, and they have been halted or changed to other topical indications, such as Novartis. And that's because these candidates were very effective. They were given orally, and then they challenged the whole systemic target effects by the reduced heat sensitivity all over the body. So patients could actually get unintended burns and scald themselves when they were drinking hot drinks, which of course is not a feasible treat for a new treatment against pain. In many cases, patients also got transient hyperthermia, but this was not the key reason for closing down the projects, as we've become aware from different types of contacts and publications. So by developing a topical formulation that we've done at Alzecure Pharma, ACD440 is now a gel, and we have circumvented the problems with the systemic side effects because the effect is only where the gel is applied. This opens up the possibility, adding on to the orphan, but also precision medicine in the subpopulations of chronic pain patients with heat hyperalgesia, where current treatments are known to be ineffective. And then, as mentioned, erythromelalgia is one of these diseases or disorders. So then what does an orphan drug designation add? We were granted the ODD, orphan drug designation, for the treatment of erythromelalgia by FDA. The pre-IND meeting we had with the FDA in Q2 this year, they were very supportive of our development program and encouraged us to pursue this further. There are several benefits with an ODD designation. It's granted for severe and life-threatening diseases without currently available treatment options. So in the US, the disorder must affect less than 200,000 individuals, and in Europe, the prevalence must affect fewer than 5, up to 10 out of 10,000 individuals. But with both agencies, there are several advantages supporting the development of the program. So one thing is an agreement on program design and output with both agencies and up all the way up to market application for both agencies. They're very open to some flexibility, but they have exactly the same requirement for the drug to be efficacious when it comes to launching it, going to market. But this also opens up to more frequent interactions along the way. It actually encourages to do so, but it also reduces the risk of a failure in phase 3. So that's shown as Dimitrova demonstrated that there are much higher approval rates when you have your phase 3 data. So why do we think that ACD440 gel blocks the TRPV1 receptor in reducing this heat-induced pain? We have conducted 2 studies, one in healthy subjects, where we exposed them to experimental pain, and we reduced the heat-induced pain by 50% compared to placebo after only 1 hour of application. And the pain reduction actually lasted for almost 11 hours after only 1 hour of application time. That publication is possible to download, open access. And then we conducted a study in patients with chronic neuropathic pain with sensory hypersensitivity. So that means that they were actually sensitive to high stimuli that triggered the pain further. And there we reduced the heat-induced pain by approximately 50% as well. And that publication is also available as open access. And just a note that 30% reduction in pain intensity is considered a clinically relevant reduction in chronic pain intensity by regulatory guidelines worldwide. So are there only help in developing? Well, not only, because this has other following effects. So in general, there's smaller programs, there's lower risk, a shorter time to market, but there's a reduced cost for clinical trials, not only because they're smaller, but also because you have tax benefits for the clinical trials. There's no fee for marketing submission for a small company, a reduced fee for big pharma, which is also a cost that is substantial. And they're also exempt from Medicaid price negotiations, as mentioned by Dimitrina. You have an orphan drug market exclusivity for 7 years. And if you co-submit pediatric data, you have another 6 months of market exclusivity. EMA have a similar program with free and frequent scientific advice and no fees for marketing submissions and no fees for the actually quite expensive activity of agency inspections during the review of the submission package. In EU, also orphan drugs get 10 years of market exclusivity for each orphan designation indication and an additional 2 years for pediatric indications. So it's slightly longer, considerably longer exclusivity in the EMA area. So now what we'll be doing here now after having this orphan drug designation granted. We will continue the preparations for a full development program in erythromelalgia. And during that, we're focusing on optimizing the program design in all aspects. And we're aiming for the shortest time to market and to patients. And also we will be pursuing, of course, business development activities, looking for the best partner to take this asset to commercialization. So in summary, erythromelalgia is a rare and chronic disease of all ages. The pain in erythromelalgia is triggered by heat, and ACD440 is effective in reducing heat-induced pain. So it's a good match. The granted orphan designation shows that the FDA support the rationale for the development of the TRPV1 receptor antagonist ACD440, especially in erythromelalgia. The designation also reduces developmental costs and gives us substantial market exclusivity going forward. So thank you so much for your attention, and I will hand back to Martin.
Thank you so much, Märta, for a splendid presentation. And what we will be doing now is to go into a Q&A session. And you as listeners are very welcome to send us questions, and we are looking forward to answering them. And the parties involved in the Q&A are, of course, today's presenters. And with this, I'll hand over to our moderator at Finwire. So please, Martin.
Thank you very much, Martin, and everyone for that presentation. And yes, let's open up the Q&A session here. We'll start with the first question. What are the main challenges and also opportunities in positioning ACD440 as a first-in-class treatment for erythromelalgia?
Mette, do you want to start?
Well, I can start with saying that it would be a first in class because there are no approved treatments. So I think that's a very simple answer to the question.
Yeah.
You probably have something to add on to that, Martin?
Yeah, and the opportunity is, of course, that we will be able to help patients that are in need. And then as well as to go into the as an orphan is also based on a commercial opportunity, very, very attractive. And as an orphan designation in the US, we will then expect to have at least 7 years of market exclusivity. In the US, 10 plus 2. And then we are, of course, also looking at the opportunity in the rest of the world. Additionally, we should say we are not only looking at erythromelalgia, there are also other orphan indication which are possible. And for each additional orphan indication, you in the US, for instance, get an additional 7 years. So this is very attractive. So thank you.
Thank you for that answer. We'll take the next question here. Is there still interest to continue with ACD440 in peripheral neuropathic pain?
I can start.
Yeah,
First of all, I can say that the initial study we have done in peripheral neuropathic pain were very promising. And the reason we are now going to for an orphan is that we see this as the fastest possible way to the market. And we also see it as the most cost-effective way to the market. We, of course, still see that there is a huge unmet medical need and a very attractive opportunity also in peripheral neuropathic pain. So, but initially we will focus on erythromelalgia.
Should I add something?
Yes, please.
Yes. So I would say that in other indications where there is a trigger of the pain due to heat, this would be an additional precision medicine tool that adds to the rest of the library of pain treatments. And today it's quite well understood that a neuropathic pain is rarely treated solely by one medication. You need a combination, and this would actually be the treatment specifically for this heat hyperalgesia, which affects quite a number of patients with different types of peripheral neuropathic pain.
Yeah, and what Märta said here is so important because in the phase 2 study we did in chronic patients with peripheral neuropathic pain, we allowed the individuals to stay on their oral medication. And even if they were on those medication, you have gabapentin, you have opioids, etc. Our asset ACD440 added an additional 50% in pain reduction. So that shows the opportunities. So this will then add additionally, and that it can be combined with other pain medication is very attractive.
Thank you for that answer. And what will Alzecure's next step be with the EM project?
Well, as I presented to you, we will look in because we have very good feedback from the FDA. They're very supportive, but we still need to look at the full program and to optimize every piece of it to be as swift and as smooth of a run for whoever takes it to the market. And I think that's actually our next step to work on the plans for this.
Mm-hmm. So to work on the plans and then also to work together with CROs to map out the full program and also the costs. We have already done some work around that. When we were in contact with the FDA, we got some additional questions. So we will work on those details as well. But we have full focus now on really developing the development program to and in connection with this also continue, as Marta said before, pursuing the BD dialogues that we already have.
And what is your BD strategy for the project?
Our BD strategy is to out-license this project. We as a biotech company, we are specializing on early discovery and early development. We do not have an intention to develop a commercial organization. So this is about out-licensing this project to the specialists who already have, how should I say, relationship with the physicians who are treating these disorders. And if we look at that today, it is the pain specialist, it's the dermatologists, and Marta, who else is it?
The neurologist.
The neurologist, of course.
And also to some extent rheumatologists,
yes.
when it's a secondary hyperalgesia. And also actually pediatricians.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Thank you both for that answer. And how big is the erythromelalgia market in terms of value?
There is a report on erythromelalgia, and that report is stating that the current market is worth about 2.6 billion. And what's interesting there is that today there are no approved pain medication for erythromelalgia, as we talked about. So to be able to come in, and also that the current drugs aren't effective. So to be able to come in with an effective, safe a drug in this market would open up very attractive commercial opportunities.
And which other development projects exist within the EM landscape?
Well, I wish I could give you a positive answer to that one, because there's been a number of efforts. And as far as we could understand from literature and from the site clinicaltrials.gov, there's no ongoing projects. And also, there have been no positive trials registered on clinicaltrials.gov, and there's nothing ongoing at present. So it looks like it's going to be a challenging comparison, because we can't see that there's anything really in the development pipeline for the erythromelalgia.
Thank you, Märta, for that answer. Are there any additional orphan indications for ACD440 which could be of interest for ACD440?
Well, there's a number of either subgroups of larger patient groups, like diabetic polyneuropathy, for instance, where some of the patients actually have a burning pain, which is not reduced by the standard treatments. But there's also many other small indications where we are looking at the possibility and the scientific rationale for looking into those as well.
And when would it be feasible to have an approved drug on the market?
Well, I would say that depends on the outcome of our fine-tuning of the development program. So it's difficult to say exactly a year or anything like that, or a time span, because everything has to fit like pieces of a jigsaw. So we can come back to that when we have a full picture from both regulatory agencies and our fine-tuning of the program. I think that is a good time to come back to you and respond to that question.
Thank you, Märta. And up until now, you have been focusing on the US market. What is your strategy and intentions for the rest of the world and the remaining markets?
The reason why we have been initially focusing on the US market is, like Dimitrina stated before, about 60% of the orphan market is in the US. And so therefore we are beginning with the dialogue there. Then we are now also pursuing the EU. And then, of course, we also see Japan, but totally we see this as a global opportunity. So this is a global, it is a global asset, if we say like that.
Thank you. And how do you view the future of the orphan drug market? Is it still growing?
Dimitrina, that is something for you.
Yes, a short answer. It is the fastest growing segment in pharma. So it's was shown some of the figures. It's really expanding. The commercial value is larger, but that's also because of the set of unique factors in orphan drug space. Well, over 90%, 95% of treatments of rare disease don't have any existing treatments. So in that way, there's a lot of patient advocacy, but also is attractive commercially, as those treatments are looking to be around 200,000 per patient, $1,000 per patient. So there's many angles to it, and it's looking that that combination of factors is providing a lot of competition among companies to put the first in line treatment, be approved, and receive an orphan designation. So there's actually just the beginning, if you can say it that way.
And I think also to add to that, as Dimitrina presented earlier, with improved diagnostics and using genetics, etc., we will understand diseases and patients in a much, much better way. And based on all the input we have from the patient, the disease development, etc., we will see more and more precision medicine. So the smaller segments of indication will only grow, and it will grow rapidly, truly. Marta, any thoughts around that as well?
Well, I couldn't agree more, I should say. I mean, we're learning so much more from biomarkers, from diagnostics, as you say. So we now, for instance, in the Alzheimer's space, we have APOE4 specific. We have other types of Alzheimer's disease that do not respond to the new antibodies or should not take them. So, and that it's pretty much the same in the pain space with all different pain indications, basically, based on the new classifications and the different neuropathic pain states. So I think this is the field of precision medicine is actually growing. And these are, of course, smaller indications. Some of them are orphan, most of them are orphan, but I would still put them under the umbrella of precision medicine.
Thank you for that answer. And do you see ACD440 as a lifelong treatment for patients with erythromelalgia? And as a follow-up, do you see any risk that patients could become desensitized to ACD440?
Those are two very good questions. So the first question is, yes, it's a lifelong disease. So there's no reason for us to believe that there is a either reduced effect or tolerance development, as we call it, as you can see with other types of drugs. And we don't have any indications that we would actually be reducing or taking away the disease per se. So I would say it's a lifelong disease, and it would be a lifelong treatment. Do we see a desensitization? No. I wouldn't say so. I mean, there is a, as you say, there is a capsaicin receptor blocker or antagonist, this ACD440. There is a 8% capsaicin patch that has the indication of neuropathic pain, but it doesn't really affect, or it doesn't really truly act only on the TRPV1 receptor. It actually affects the whole sensory nervous system in the skin. So the effect is actually much more, what should I say, robust or crude. specific receptor antagonist. So I don't think there would be any desensitization. That's also nothing that we have seen in the studies that we have conducted.
Thank you very much for that answer. And that concludes the Q&A session. And I'll hand over the word to you, Martin, for some concluding remarks.
Thank you so much. So, final remarks on today's sessions on orphan drugs and ACD440 in erythromelalgia. So, what we can say around this opportunity is that the orphan drug market grows rapidly, twice as fast as for common drugs, and also with prices which in general are 17 times higher than for common drugs, which really shows how attractive the orphan drug market is. And also highly attractive both for big pharma and institutional investors, which is important, of course, both when it comes to acquiring these projects as investing in Alzecure. And then this asset, ACD440 for erythromelalgia, represents a major opportunity for us as a company, moving the company up towards potential registration trial, and this creating the opportunity to have a shorter time to the market. And this within orphan, we know it's much smaller studies than with common drugs. Additionally, we know that the unmet medical need in erythromelalgia is major, and there are currently no approved drugs with this indication, and there are no other drugs available which are effective in erythromelalgia. Additionally, we are very happy that we have received the positive feedback from the FDA on this potential registration trial with ACD440 in erythromelalgia. And our main strategy is now to out-license ACD440, which we are working on while preparing for a potential registration study. So those are the take-home messages, and we look forward to upload this presentation at our site for Alzecure, and we will also looking forward to make Dimitrina's report available, and please scan the QR code which Dimitrina had in her presentation. And with that, I would like to thank both Marta and Dimitrina for excellent presentation, and I would like to thank you for attending this seminar, and wish you a continuing great day. All the best. Take care.